The establishment of subtropical grasses has improved dramatically over the last 5 to 7 years. Major contributing factors have been furrow sowing, better weed control, and the development of an establishment package for subtropical grasses. However, in a recent survey of producers, the risk of poor or failed establishment is still an issue, especially for producers who do not have subtropical grasses or have limited experience with sowing them. In this video, Christiaan Valentine introduces a machinery demonstration trial near Dandaragan.
Sowing of perennial grasses needs precise placement, and we're here at the Sherrilee on Matt Taylor's farm. It's just at West Dandaragan, and we've got 3 farmers who have actually set up their machines to hopefully get that precise placement for sowing. The trial behind me we've set up so the farmers can come out here quickly and easily put the trial in using their machines, and we can have a comparison between the different machines because they do work slightly differently. One's a disc machine that throws the soil slightly off to one side and puts the seed in the furrow. The other 2 are more like the standard combine scalping machines, which put the seed behind a point, very shallow, and then just pressed in with a press wheel.
Seeding took place on August 16th. All 3 seeders used the same seed, a mix of 70% coated Gatton panic and 30% coated Rhodes grass, sown at 3 kilograms per hectare. Each machine sowed 850 metre long strips in a north-south direction with 3 replicates. The first producer we speak with is Gavin Haywood. This is the second machine Gavin has built for sowing subtropical grasses.
Yeah, it's a A61 International Combine, about 1968 model. We've removed every 3rd disc off a culti trash. We've left all the trash standard, and we've used a John Shearer ploughing disc. And it's got a seeding row about 545mm, about 21-22 inches, and taken all the back row discs off, and just added the press wheels, and that's pretty much it. Works really well in where you got non-wetting soil and you've got to sculpt the non-wetting off the top. It works really well. This sort of country where I'm at the moment, where it's a bit greener, it's not quite doing as good a job as the tine machines, I don't think, but I guess we'll see in time. We don't use fertiliser, we use straight seed in this machine. I've just got 8 spray seed containers that we put the seed into in the seeding, and it's on the fine side of the machine, so we can get rates down to 1.5 kilos if we want to, up to 6 or 7. It seems to work pretty well, and as everyone knows with inter-combines, they're buggers are things to clean out. Key factors for successful establishment would be spraying to start with, get a good grass kill, insects, and the rain's probably the biggest thing. If you can get the rain when you want it. It's not always the case, but yeah.
The second producer is Grant Cray.
This is a John Shearer 6-row trash culti drill machine that we've been using for our cereal crops and lupins, and we've since bought an air seeder, and we've now converted this to seed our perennial pastures. And what we've basically done is just removed 4 rows of the tines and left 2 rows there which we've lined up. The front row is the scalping row, and it's got a bigger point on it, and that scalps the soil out of the way, and the rear row has got the seeding chutes on it and the press wheels, and so the seeds virtually dropped into the scalped area and the press wheel presses it in. So it's basically nothing really that we've had to do major to convert it. It's just removing the rows of tines. Basic modification is the width of the tines, which is 500mm, and lining the 2 tines up, the front tine with the rear tine and the press wheel all in line. We found that it's done a really good job on establishment, and a lot of people have used it as well, and they found that it's done a good job as well. We can travel up to around 12 kilometres an hour with it, because we've got the spacing set on 500mm. It's not throwing into the next row, so you can go a bit faster. And you can't really predict what the year's going to do, so the earlier that you can and spray the weeds out and conserve the moisture for establishment, that really helps. Probably avoid sowing them if you haven't got a good moisture bank there, because you can run into a bit of trouble. You can actually start to get wind erosion on your seeded plots if there's not enough moisture to germinate them. What we've started doing now is it's not so much waiting for the soil temperature to become right for seeding them. We're sort of seeding when there is moisture there, so that, and then the plant is actually in the moisture.
The third producer is Matt Taylor.
It's just a standard 27 row case 5126 international machine combine. It's still the same machine I use for my cropping, so I didn't want to change it so drastically that it's going to take me days to change it back for the following season. This particular machine, I've used a 6-inch scarifier point and used 6-inch pipe cut in half and welded on top. I had a bit of trouble getting the right angle, because I found if the angle was too far forward, the dirt would it wouldn't flow. It would sort of like buffering it all the time, like punching in a punching bag. And also on this particular machine, we've put the other tines in to try to sow Ceradella at the same time. So it works out about not quite a foot distance between the two tines. So it's slightly shy of 600 mil for the perennials, and the tines at the back, which is still on the same spacing I've got for my sowing wheat, etc. And I've modified it because I used stiletto boots for the first time this year on the combine, and we decided to try them using the Ceradella as well. I'd say the biggest factor for success for establishment that I've found is weed control. There's been a few times where I've sown perennials up near a standing canola crop, and I've switched the boom spray off on that side so I wouldn't get drift. And when I seeded it in the following year, when the perennials are all established, there was just no perennials because the annuals just competed too much. Yeah. I'd say the key things to avoid that I've found with establishment of perennials is not to go too late, because the seasons have stopped quite suddenly, and a few seasons we just didn't have a spring, and so I'd rather go in early, as in mid-August, even early August, so it can just sit there and wait, and if it does cut off early, which it has been doing lately, it still get a bit of rain.
Immediately after seeding, this is what the furrows in the paddock looked like. First, the disc seeder, which appeared to have the least soil disturbance in the interrow. Second, the modified John Shearer Cultitrash. Third, the modified Case 5126 International Combine. Within the trial area, 3 sites were selected: north, centre and south, to measure the sand infill, plant establishment and persistence of the grasses over summer. In the north, the soil is about 30 centimetres of sand over gravel, and at seeding there was a large amount of brome grass present, while at the southern end the soil is a pale deep sand and there was a low ground cover at seeding. Sand infill into the furrows, especially before the seedlings emerge, increases the effective seeding depth. The sand infill measured on September 5th was predominantly due to strong winds associated with a cold front a few days earlier, which resulted in sand movement in parts of the paddock. At that stage, there was minimal emergence of the perennial grasses due to cool conditions after seeding. At the northern end of the trial, there was less than 5mm sand infill. But with all 3 seeders, there was more sand infill in the furrows at the southern end of the trial. These levels of sand infill could affect emergence, especially for Rhodes grass, which is very sensitive to seeding depth. The plant establishment was consistently good across treatments and across the paddock. This figure shows the establishment in plants per square metre on 30th of October, with blue bars for Rhodes grass and Gatton panic with the green bars. All 3 seeders had good establishment with more than 8 plants per square metre. First, the disc seeder. Second, the modified John Shearer Cultitrash. Third, the modified Case 5126 International Combine.
Here we are at the southern end of the paddock, and the soil type is a deep pale sand. In spite of the fact that we had a lot more sand infill at this end of the paddock on the deep pale sand, we've still ended up with a good establishment of the perennial grasses, especially the paddock grass, which is less sensitive to seeding depth, as you can see in the paddock around us.
All 3 seeders have resulted in successful establishment of subtropical grasses at the paddock scale. This reinforces that successful establishment can be achieved with a range of seeding machinery and configurations, provided 3 key principles are followed. First, furrow sowing. The seeder needs to form stable furrows that scalp away non-wetting sand, remove weed seeds and harvest rainfall. Second, uses press wheels to provide good seed contact with moist soil. And third, wide row spacing, typically 50 to 60 centimetres, to allow annual pasture growth over winter-spring. An obvious question is, what about using a conventional seeder used for sowing annual crops like an air seeder? Farmer experience over several years with different seasonal conditions clearly shows that using a seeder specially modified for sowing subtropical grasses gives more reliable establishment.